Welcome to the Pestle, reviewing and breaking down movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by adolescents. Boy, I sure don't miss that. Let's dim the lights and start the show.
Welcome everybody to the Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by the Golden Stream. Get a drink with a view at the Golden Stream. Welcome everyone to the Pestle. I am Wes.
And I am Todd.
And we're filmmakers located across America. I was about to say located in Austin, but that's only half. The other half of the show takes place in San Francisco-ish. And that's what we do, though. We're filmmakers. Todd's been a full-time producer for a hot minute now. I've been a full-time writer-director for the last 10 plus years, going on, I don't even know anymore, 2012. What does that make this? Going on my 12th year, which is outrageous in 1 month. And so we use all of that to talk about films, analyze them, process them, and see what we can learn about the filmmaking process, and all kinds of things. I'm in the middle right now. I spent most of my day in casting. So I'm casting a new short film I'm shooting in a few weeks. We are recording on January 4th. And so it's an interesting thing, man. Casting, especially at this level, I personally am not a huge fan of casting agencies. There are benefits to that, but I think having been an actor for a long time, going through casting agencies and being frustrated with that whole process on that end, I like trying to discover talent and dig up people who are passionate and maybe don't have as many avenues with that. Not to say I don't work with agencies or talent managers or any of that. I mean, we do, but it's really nice to feel like there's no filter between me and everyone I'm trying to see. But with that, it also means a lot of things. One, I have to be able to look at a reel or an audition through the filter of especially a reel. If I'm going through people's demo reels, at this level, it's not like everyone's doing CBS shows and, Paramount Films, A24 projects, it's a lot of bad writing, bad directing, bad editing, bad sound. And I have to be able to see through all of that to see if this person is a good actor. And it can be tricky because you want to say, oh, this person's not very good, but you might just be responding to one of those other elements. A bad script, it takes a lot of really good acting, incredible acting to overcome bad writing, bad directing, bad editing, let alone bad sound. The sound is probably the easiest to see through. It's frustrating as an audience member trying to enjoy a film, but it's easy to see through whenever you're like just watching someone's performance. Like we could show you clips of whoever, Ethan Hawke, on stage and doing Shakespeare in a theater, and you're gonna be like, that's great acting. It's gonna be terrible audio, but you're gonna recognize good acting. Whereas bad directing might mean taking a good performance and trashing it. That's really hard to overcome. And so it's interesting just trying to see and filter through all those elements to say, oh, I think that person's a really good actor and I want to see them audition with my script or do a monologue. Like that's one of my favorite things is having someone do a 60-second monologue, which some acting coaches don't like. They're under this impression that it's really useless. Just have them read the script. Well, sometimes the script is like one sentence. That's 3 words and that's their part. I can't see if they're a good actor when they do 3 words. I need to give them an opportunity to have 30 to 60 seconds of stage time that they've chosen to, hey, perform and really show me a moment, really show me whatever, an arc, And so giving someone that opportunity is much easier whenever you have a 60-second monologue. And we've done a whole episode that were released on auditions. And you can find it at thepestlepodcast.com/auditions. I don't know which episode number that is. And so that's one half of it. The other half is making sure as the day wears on as a, director and going through auditions that you don't get tired. It's really tempting to start checking out. And so you have to double down mentally every single new audition. Like, no, I'm here. I'm in it. I'm listening. But the rewards, man, the rewards are great because once you...
What happened?
Oh man, there was this woman who came in and read for there's 2 leads. It's a guy and a girl. And I'm looking for those 2 people, and it starts with having a really good actor. It's not like we're going to do screen testing where we pair off people. I don't have that luxury, but whenever you go through a few auditions, like we started our day, I think we went through 4 or 5 auditions and they were all fine. It wasn't like there was any really bad performances, but no one just walked in and that's them. That's the character. I don't know what your real name is, but I know who you are. No one was doing that until this woman walked in. It was a Skype session or Zoom, and it was just alive. It was and embedded in this character. You could feel like she had a point of view, a perspective. It wasn't projecting. A lot of auditions, especially if you're not really seasoned, you don't have a lot of training, you kind of approach it like you're on stage at the theater. And so you project a little bit more. Film is intimate. You don't have to yell or announce your intentions to the back of the room. You don't do any of that in film. It's very personal. It's almost to yourself sometimes, depending on the scene, context, blah, blah, blah. And to see someone walk in and live this character, live this scene, and have all this intention behind it, and then take redirection. That's the other thing is, if I give you a redirect, can you handle that? Can you now take on, did you just perform it a certain way and you rehearsed performing it this one way, and then you can no longer take redirection? Or can I come in and say, okay, let's speed it up and let's do X, Y, and Z and see how that goes. And if you can do those things, man, that's exciting, because now I know not only can you deliver what I want, which is what she did on the first go through, but if I need to make small adjustments, she can do that without blowing up the character, right? That's the other temptation, is someone gives you a note and suddenly you're doing a whole new scene. It's like, wait, whoa, you were there. I tried to shift you by half a degree. And yeah, she just nailed it. And as soon as we jumped off the call, my producer and I just kind of looked at each other and we're like, yeah, everyone who comes after her now has to pry it out of her living, breathing fingers. Like it's hers to lose, and that's exciting, man. That's really exciting.
Wow. That is a lot for you to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never really heard you talk that highly about anybody in any kind of casting that you've done. So that's saying a lot.
That's really true, because going through auditions, there was only one person I kind of made notes to myself, and one person I put excellent. I put very good next to 2 people. One was a new guy. Doesn't have a very long list of credits, not a lot of training, but I could see through like 3 or 4 short films that he cut together for his reel, he's got skill. And I was really impressed. I didn't expect it. And I was like, this guy's inexperienced, but very good. So I'll need to test him a little bit more in the audition to make sure it's not just, vaporware. But the woman who's excellent, she's going to be playing the mom of one of the victims. And she just had an incredible reel. I don't know any of these TV shows that she's done, but she was just maximizing everything. It was just like, oh my God, I cannot wait to meet her and beg her to take this role. But otherwise, wow. Man, you're right. I don't know how many times I've ever, feel like I've been blown away. And so that is exciting, man. Thanks for pointing that out, because you're right. I didn't notice that.
Yeah. I mean, normally I feel like you have had to settle for the best you can get instead of the right one, because, and I mean, settle's the wrong word, but you've gotten, what you've hoped, but getting something that's more than what you've hoped.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've ever heard you get that before.
I think that's awesome. Right. It's exciting. So hopefully now, what's funny is after that, I started watching all the rest of the auditions for the guy, her co-star. And I was like, I need to make them worthy of her.
Ooh.
Because she can only be as good as her scene partner. And I feel like I'm going to let her down if I don't give her someone to really help push her in the scenes, in a manner of speaking. Like she needs someone that she can really bounce off of. And so now I feel like I owe it to her to find someone as good as she is.
Wow. And you've got 2 more days of this?
2 more days. Yeah. This was a short day and it was a lengthy one. And so Friday and Saturday we're recording on Thursday. And so, yeah, the next 2 days will be long, but hopefully I'll find my dude. Yeah.
I think you will, man. That's awesome.
Thanks, man.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you found one at least. That's great.
On our way, buddy.
On our way.
Nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of playing around in sandbox, what are we doing today?
Today we are covering The Iron Claw, which at the moment is in theaters, but may or may not be when you listen to this. But if you haven't seen that film, please pause this episode and go watch it. There will be spoilers galore following.
Oh my God. Yeah, we're not going to talk about a lot, and you'll find out rather quickly why that is. But the things I definitely want to touch on are some of the story and writing, exposition, the bittersweet salve, and other such stuff and things and stuff.
And a quick synopsis of the film: the true story of the Von Erich brothers who made history in the intense world of professional wrestling in the early 1980s. It's directed and written by Sean Durkin, cinematography by Mátyás Erdély. It's featuring Zac Efron as Kevin Von Erich, Harris Dickinson as David Von Erich, Jeremy Allen White as Kerry Von Erich, Stanley Simons as Mike Von Erich, Holt McCallany as Fritz Von Erich, Maura Tierney as Doris Von Erich, and Lily James as Pam.
Nice. No clip today. I couldn't find a satisfactory. It was all like Rush doing Tom Sawyer. And so,
nice.
And so we'll just dive right in. I'm curious of a couple things. You'll answer the obvious, so I'm not going to ask the obvious. But one, did you watch wrestling growing up? What your relationship with wrestling is, as well as were you familiar with the Von Erich story? Yeah. And therein, of course.
I was not familiar with the Von Erich story at all, in the least. Didn't really watch wrestling growing up. And I just never really got into that world. It was never something. I mean, I watched it every now and then when I saw it was on back WWF, back in those days, but I never spent an extended amount of time watching it. It just wasn't super entertaining for me.
Yes.
What about you?
Yeah, same. Like I probably watched a little bit more than you did in elementary. Like about the time I stopped watching, the Bushwhackers were like popular. Obviously Hulk and Macho Man Randy Savage, Undertaker's eternal, apparently. So to speak. So a little bit in elementary up until like 5th or 6th grade, and then I fell out. I think it's a result of living in the country and having very limited options. Like if you catch a station over the air, that's what you watch. And so, yeah, a little bit, but same as you. Like I'm not I was never a big wrestling guy.
Yeah. I mean, I did, have a few of the, what were they? The figurines, they had them for football too. And what were they called? I forget. They had a name. Anyway, I had a few of them, and my favorite was Undertaker. I loved Macho Man Randy Savage and a few others.
Mr.
Hogan,
Perfect was my dude. I really loved Mr. Perfect. He was a complete a-hole,
nice.
And I loved him. I hated Ric Flair. That was not my dude.
Oh no, he was, yeah. But I don't know. It was just, it never spoke to me like, extensively. It was like fun every now and then, but not too much.
So how did the film land for you, man? What was the impact, not knowing what you were walking into and then getting just absolutely clotheslined?
Yeah. So, when I watch movies like this, I try to remind myself, like, this is a story that happened. And so we're trying to tell a story that actually really happened, apart from making a decision about something happening in the movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if I'm writing a fiction, then it's the writer's decision to say what happens next, right? And it is that way to a point, when you're writing something that's factual or that's based on a true story. But if these things happened, we're going to show these things happening. So I try to watch these movies with knowing that. I will say, Zac Efron did a great job. I really enjoyed him. I liked the way his transformation was incredible. I mean, he's always had a great physique, but he's never been massive, you know, and he just put on so much mass for this film. It was just unbelievable. I mean, I was watching all of the other wrestlers that were being compared to him that he was wrestling, and I just kept thinking, my God, he's so much bigger than everyone, you know? I mean, honestly, he put Tom Hardy to shame in some ways from Warrior. You know, the dude was just jacked in every single way. And I watch that and I think, man, that is super dedication. And I really loved his performance in a lot of ways. He was a very, you know, he had to be a certain type of character. He had to be a character that was aggressive when he needed to be, but really wasn't very aggressive. Like he was a delicate individual most of the time. All he cared about was his family and his brothers. That's it. And he makes it very clear throughout the film. And by saying it to Pam and whomever will listen, really. But you get him in the ring and, you know, he's trying to put on a show. He's trying to do his job. He's trying to like do what he loves to do as best he can. And that means being aggressive. And he's also got a lot of dedication. And then at the end, him sitting there and watching his kids play, I kind of lost it. I just, you know, after everything he went through with his brothers, I firmly believed it. And this is going to be the same situation that I have when I tell you my reco today this is a role that I think probably only a seasoned actor could do. I don't think that anybody who hasn't done movies before could probably do a role like that very well. I mean, anybody can try it, but I don't think anybody could pull it off the way that someone like Zac Efron could do. And, you know, I'm not saying I'm a huge fan, like he's the best actor in the world. I loved him in The Greatest Showman. I thought he was great. But he's nothing to write home about for me. But a lot of those actors who I feel that way about, when they have a film like this, it gives them the opportunity to show their chops. And I don't think he's ever really gotten that, at least nothing that I've seen. And I just really loved it. I thought he rode the line really well, was aggressive when he needed to be, pulled back from Pam when he needed to be, was very loving towards her. The scene of them making love the first time in the truck, you know, the way that he had to deliver that information to her that he had never before was so delicate, you know, that he needed to do it in a way that was, you know, like not small, but quiet and trusting. It is the only words I can think of. And it was flawless, and you couldn't even see them because it was a silhouette and it was beautifully shot. I thought it was great. And then he was aggressive with his brothers. I just thought I don't know. I loved him in this film. I thought he was great. The dad I thought was a total a-hole in every sense of the word. What's the actor's name? I forget.
Holt McCallany. Yeah.
Holt. Yeah. Yeah. Total a-hole. And we've talked about this kind of thing before about, you know, do you have to be that way, you know, to pull greatness out of people? And I wholeheartedly, I mean, I don't know. I disagree. You know,
I love that
I think
scene.
I would have said,
if I can jump in for 30 seconds here.
Please. Yeah. Sorry.
There's that scene that you were just talking about with them in the truck is just so good, man, because for so many reasons. One, it goes back to what we were talking about at the start, good writing being conducive to great acting. And it's a really long take. It's not like, oh, we're just going to cut this up. Like the pacing, the rhythm is all happening in camera. This isn't just splicing together 50 takes. It's one really good take with two incredible actors. Lily James is giving so much for Zac Efron to respond to. And likewise, he's giving her so much to respond to give her the power to take control of the scene. And it's a really beautiful dynamic that they're doing. And I love that it's shot in that silhouette, because what it does is it makes you lean forward. You have to lean forward to read the intentions and the emotion between the characters. And now you're just that much more tuned in to what's happening in front of you. And it feels that much more delicate because, you know, they're not yelling. They're almost whispering, right? It's a very low tone because of the situation. And it's so wonderfully, all of it. It's just all so well executed. Oh my God. And I'll come back to Zac Efron. But I just wanted to point that out because I hadn't really thought about it until you started talking about it. I was like, yeah, there is so much going on in that scene.
Yeah. And that's just one. I also loved the little brother. What was his name? Harris? Is it Harris Dickinson? No.
Mike. Mike is the little brother. Stanley Simons. Yeah.
Mike. Okay. Stanley Simons. I loved his performance. He needed to be exactly what he was, you know, a little brother, who had other interests, but then at the end he had to go into wrestling, but he didn't want to. And then he had the accident and everything. And just, so he was really wonderful. Anytime I saw him on the screen, I believed it. You know, I really did. Obviously Jeremy Allen White, you know, is fantastic. And when I say, you know, decisions are different when you're making a based on true story kind of movie. I mean, kind of like larger decisions. And I'm saying that because I wanted to point out Maura, Tierney, and Doris, the mom. I think that would be a hard character to write as fiction, because how could anybody really write that character? How could anybody write a mom who doesn't cry at her son's funeral? I'm serious. I mean, you could. Anybody could. You can write anything, but who? I mean, in a situation where you're writing a story about all the brothers dying, writing the mom as someone who doesn't cry, you know, at the funeral, it would be something that I would never even think to do, you know? So that was probably how she was, I imagine. I imagine all the interviews probably led to that, you know?
I can imagine that,
knowing that.
Or just using that as a symbol of who she really was. Like whether or not she cried at the funeral is almost like to the point of she's that kind of personality that you would imagine wouldn't cry at her son's funeral. Yeah. And so it's pointed one way or another, whether it probably happened or whether, you know, it's just more of getting to the point of who she actually is as a mother to these sons and wife to Fritz.
Yeah. And, you know, I have a son and watching this, is it worth it? Really? Is it worth a freaking legacy? Is it worth success, whatever you want to call that, to beat them down into submission, to make them fight for your approval? Like that feels like something that in the moment they probably enjoyed because that was all they knew.
Yeah.
But imagine if they grew up in a completely loving home where they were loved no matter what they wanted to do, whatever, you know, that would feel, then that situation would feel like prison, you know? And yes, okay, so they're, you know, the most well-known family in wrestling. Who gives a shit? Who cares? Doesn't matter. His brothers are gone. It's not worth it. I don't care what you do. It's not worth it, you know? And watching that is really hard for me because I could never imagine doing that to my kids ever. And yeah, that's me and everybody's different, you know, but I don't want to be around people who would do that. I don't want that, you know, in my life at all. That's not something I subscribe to.
Not at all. And 1 second. Noise canceling died. And what makes it so much
two
worse,
pairs of those?
Yeah, on standby. I have a third waiting for me here in a second. And what makes it so much worse is just how incredibly sweet those boys are.
Yes.
They're just so kind and loving to one another. And to see that begin to slowly get perverted as the film goes on is so painful to see what they're starting to willing to do to each other. You know, they're at the funeral for David. Oof. Right. And the father's like, hey, shows must go on. We need someone to step up for the title. And Kerry immediately is like, I can do it. I want that. And it's like, it's there. It's such good writing because it immediately tells you what this father is doing to his boys. Whenever you can be at the funeral of one son and have another looking to claw his way over on top of his big brother. Like, that is not who these kids actually are. And it's all resting at the feet of Fritz. And so you going through this whole movie and watching what he's doing and watching how incredibly sweet Kevin is. And I'm not going to lie, when we get to the end and he starts choking him, I wanted that to happen. I was like, you better go after him. You better put him on the ground, choke him out. And part of me wanted for him to kill him. But then as he was going, I was like, no, don't do that. You got, kids of your own. You have a wife. Don't do it. And he went further than I wanted him to, which felt really good as an experience, but was because it was terrifying. I was like, oh God, don't do it.
Great point.
Oh yeah. God.
That was good editing, man. They kept him on him for a long time. I felt the same way and I didn't know how to put that into words, but you're right. Like, I wanted him to kill him, go after him. We'll go after him first. And then he got him on the ground and I thought, okay, now, yeah, kill him. And then it went on for, I think, 3 or 4 beats longer than I thought it would have. I was like, he should be still now. He's not still. Okay, maybe you shouldn't do this, man. Yeah. I'm kind of having second thoughts. Please stop. And then he stopped. That was great editing, I thought. Yeah, good point.
Completely agree. Really patient and just pushes the audience so much further than you expect. God, going back to Zac Efron. Oh my God. Absolutely, he's getting a nomination. Like, he's getting nominated for Best Actor. Well-deserved, well-earned. And there's so much nuance in his performance. And it goes back to exactly what you're talking about. He's aggressive when he needs to be, and he's gentle when he needs to be. And it's all contextual. And then seeing those worlds collide in moments, those personality traits start to collide. There's that scene when he's wrestling Harley Race. And he wins by default, right? Because Harley Race goes after the ref, and he gets disqualified. And then he starts wailing on Kevin. And then David, played by Dickinson, he jumps into the ring and chases Harley off. And you see Kevin ask for the mic, and he starts going, and you're like, oh, that's rough. And I had this assumption. I was like, I bet David's gonna jump in, and he does. He takes the mic because out of a good thing, I think. He was wanting to help his brother. I never felt that it was malicious and he was trying to take the limelight. And I could feel Kevin's frustration at the same time, feel them still trying to be a showman because you can't betray the moment. You can't let the guard down, even though I could feel he's actually really upset right now that his brother is probably taking the limelight. And then as soon as that scene ends, you're like, yep, like there it is. He's just like, and you could also feel the contrition from David. He was like, man, I'm sorry. I was trying to help, but that was a big moment. That was Kevin's moment. He's got the title now, or a shot at the title. And he didn't really get to, extract the maximum amount of potential out of it. And so it made him look bad, even though that was a tough moment because he was flailing, Dude, and the emotions there, man.
It's such a great scene, man. I don't know. I'm so glad you brought that scene up. That is a perfect example of great, like how hard acting actually can be. If you come at it from okay, now I'm going to be this and I'm going to be that, whatever, like the way that they had to act, acting in quotes, the way they had to act was to not act. They had to actually be in the moment, put themselves in that moment. Because you cannot in front of a camera, when someone yells action, feel two things at once. You can't force yourself to feel two things at once. It's impossible. You can only be in the moment to feel two things at once.
Hmm.
I hope that's making sense.
Yeah.
You know, you're an actor, you know, if you're fake, if you're fake and you're trying to make yourself feel something, you can't make it's just like you can't feel your elbow and your knee at the same time. You think you can, but you can't. You can only do one thing at a time. It's the same thing with that. And in that scene, they had to have this dichotomy of emotion. You know, he had Kevin had to keep performing, like you said, but be a little like frustrated with his brother. And then David had to, you know, kind of feel like, I really don't want to do this, but I'm trying to save you, bro. It was, you're right. That's such a great example of why he should get a nomination.
Absolutely. And I honestly think Harris Dickinson, I mean, he's fantastic. And this is not at all the kind of role I imagined him taking. And I thought he was amazing. I can see him winning an Academy Award for Best Actor in the next 5 to 10 years. If you watch a lot of his other projects, he picks great roles in great films, and it's only a matter of time before, you know, the Academy feels like he's earned the right through his peers to have that moment. And I think he will have absolutely earned it. And I think this is Zac Efron's time. I don't know. I don't want to go too far down the Academy rabbit hole here, but I think he might lose to Paul Giamatti, not necessarily because I think Giamatti did better in The Holdovers, but I think it's one of those, it's his time. Giamatti's earned this. And I don't know if he's won an Academy before for Best Actor, but I think it's going to be one of those moments where it's like, you know what? It's a great role and it's his moment. It's his time. And we're going to honor that. And so I don't know. I think right now for me, if I'm a voting member, it's a toss up between Zac Efron for this and Coleman Domingo actually for Rustin, which came on Netflix. He's magic. He is absolutely magic. But yeah, dude, the performances here, and we haven't even talked about Jeremy Allen White really. Like, right? It's all great. Holt, how much do we hate Holt McCallany? Like, it's detestable, and yet, you know, he might get a supporting, I guess. This film, man, but I really wanted to watch it twice. Well, I wanted to force myself to. I couldn't do it twice. I kept trying to talk myself into it. And every time I did, I was like, I just kept remembering him on the bank crying, saying that I used to be a brother.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, the whole thing is pretty heavy, but I've watched heavy movies multiple times. So I think that the fact that this is based on a true story, you know, I think maybe if you watch it again, but it's based more on watching for the performance and for the cinematography and stuff, like maybe you can get through it, but I wouldn't want to. I don't want to stay away from that. To be honest.
Couldn't. And it's so beautiful because we get to the end of the film and I had no idea. I had no idea what I was walking into. In fact, to the point of I missed the first death. Like I walked to the bathroom. I was like, oh, it's the end of the wedding. They had a really good conversation between David and Kevin. And I was like, this feels like a really good moment to just go to the bathroom real quick and come back. And because I was thinking, oh, he's going to run to Japan and I'm probably going to miss like a little bit of fighting in the ring and a little jealousy from Kevin, that kind of thing. And when I came back, they were at a funeral. And I was like, wait, what just happened? And so if you could fill me in, what happened between the funeral and the end of the wedding? Like, I literally have no idea what happened to David.
So the end of the wedding, they do this, you know, they do the dance at the end of the wedding. I don't know if you saw them dancing.
I saw them dancing and it was
beautiful. They fade out on Harris Dickinson, on David. They fade out on him. And that fade out told me this guy's screwed. He's going to die. I just knew it. Because they cut to everybody and then he's last. They fade out on him. And then they open with next with Zac Efron driving down the road in his truck. And you can just tell he's going to his house, to his dad's house. And he walks in, he's looking around like, Dad, what's up? His dad just sitting there in kind of like the dark in the kitchen. He's just sitting there at the table and Kevin, Zac Efron walks in and he sits down and Fritz Fritz just says, David's dead. He died. He died in the hotel in Japan. And Zac is like, what? And then they just sit there a little bit. And that's it.
What?
And then there's the funeral. You didn't miss much. But the way that he told him was so matter of fact. It was like, it wasn't like he didn't care. I mean, that's another reason why Holt might get, a nomination. I think you're right, because he had this dichotomy of emotions too. He was, stern and very, hard. But you could tell there was something behind it still. Like when he told David, or when he told Kevin that David had died, there was sadness behind a brick wall of just, this happened kind of thing. But it was there. It was a little bit there. So it was freaky and awful.
Oh, man.
That was
okay.
it.
Yeah, that tracks. God. Yeah, that was fast.
There might have been there might have been one or two other things, but nothing that stuck with me. That was just that.
God.
And then basically it was that. What did you think about the random references to the afterlife? Like with I think it was his mom. It was David's mom, the mom, watching. I think she was watching Kerry wrestle, and in the background on the stairs, there was a ghost of David sitting there watching. Did you notice that?
I can't remember it.
And then
I saw this opening weekend, so this was like what, 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm like, yeah, I may have noticed it, but obviously it didn't stick with me long enough. It sounds familiar though. God, that's
so. Yeah, she's watching she's watching Kerry wrestle. I think for the belt. I can't remember, but she's watching him wrestle, and in the background behind her is obviously a faded like a it's like a faded version of what you can tell that it's David. Because the way his hair sits and stuff, you could tell that it's him, but it's faded. And I was like, is that David just sitting there? What? That's so weird. But I can see through him. Oh, it might be a ghost of him. And then they cut. She turns around to look at the stairs, and we cut from the stairs, and nobody's sitting there. From the stairs, looking at her, and nobody's sitting there. So there was that reference. But then also, when Kerry kills himself and he goes to meet his brothers, there's that too. And then he gets to meet his little brother who died, his little 3-year-old brother or whatever.
And that's the bittersweet salve that I wanted to talk about, because our hearts shattered. Like up to that point, we're just in 1,000 pieces, and it's so beautiful to be giving this little beautiful moment to aid our broken hearts a little. Seeing Kerry, the first thing you do is he has his foot back, and he jumps, right? And he celebrates a little bit like, oh yeah, that feels good. And then I love that he's on the boat. We have this quiet moment of him rowing before we slowly reveal through the brush the pier with his brother sitting on it. Hey, brother. Hey, brothers. And I love that choice of dialogue. I think it's the kind of dialogue that someone would look at in a script and say, that's terrible. No one talks to their brothers that way. And they would just miss it, that there's an emotional thing that's happening that is reinforcing this whole story that's leading up to, Kevin's lines on the bank. And it just works because of the context, because of the actors, and because we wanted to. We were rooting for it.
We do. You're right.
And then he meets his little brother for the first time. Oh. And it's so good. And then, of course, we have Kevin has a beautiful family with loving boys, right? We see the final. So in such a tragic story, we have these beautiful moments that are helping offset all the pain. And it's so good. Yeah, that's why it works, because we need it. If you don't have those things, man, I leave mad. I don't get mad at movies very often. But how upset are you walking out of this? Like, was there anything good that happened that came out of this? Was there anything beautiful? And those moments, it's like, you know what? afterlife or no, I need that moment. I need to believe that there's these boys got to experience something sweet.
Yeah, totally. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Oh
man.
The other thing, I guess, that I have on my top of mind anyway is the exposition. You referenced it earlier about Fritz, like kind of putting a pecking order. And this is a cool way to do exposition. I mean, it's cool in not like a nice way, but cool in like in a very efficient and effective writing technique. And I'm talking about the moment, of course, when we're at the breakfast table and Dad goes around the table saying what everyone is doing that he's proud of in his ranking order of love, right? And it's so good because, one, it's exposition. We're learning about who does what, who's good at what. And of course, it leaves Mike as a really big question mark. I don't know what Mike's going to be yet. We're going to figure that out, and we can see Mike is just very queasy over there. Like, I don't want to be a part of any of that. Like, I love something else. And it's revealing also the dad and his relationship to his sons, because he's the kind of dad that would do that. So it's the slickest exposition you'll see by virtue of revealing character through revealing what people are. Like, it just reveals character on multiple levels, I guess, is the more efficient way of saying what I'm trying to get at. And it's just beautiful writing. Beautiful writing gives everyone a chance to perform as well, to react to how their dad loves them. There's so much information being revealed through this exposition. God, freaking amazing.
Yeah, and I totally believe it. I totally believe it from an asshole like that, because he would sit at the table and tell you what you do. Tell his, Kevin is the greatest. Kevin is the best wrestler. That's what you do, Kevin, by the way. David, you're the best, whatever. I don't know, whatever he said. But in doing that, he's telling the order of his favorite, but also what they do and why they're his favorite. And if you want to stay there, you keep doing that and you keep getting better at that. Oh, and by the way, it can change, it can change. Yeah, man. Brutal in so many ways, but so well executed in all the ways. And yeah, Zac Efron absolutely deserves a nod for sure.
100%. The other thing that I guess last little comment is, wrestling is hard. Like, they make it look really easy, but these have to be some of the most athletic people in the world, because you're performing your stunts live without any safety. And you're also doing it to performance. It's not like you get to just fake a punch, hit the ground, get up and do it again for the next take. It's like, no. You have to do it in character. And if things go wrong, stay in character. Like that moment, that one of the reasons I can't watch, there's two scenes that I just can't go through again. The second one, of course, is Kevin on the bank saying how he's not a brother anymore. But the first one is Kevin getting a suplex on pavement.
Yes.
I locked up. My body seized. I was like, I can't move.
Literally out loud, I said, "Oh no," out loud in the theater. I was like, "Oh, this is how this movie's going. He's quadriplegic now. I don't know." Right. And then he got up.
Finished.
Yeah.
The amount of dexterity and proprioception, right, that you have in your body to understand what your body's moving through space and doing, and how it's going to impact your scene partners, right? Because when you're wrestling, it's not just you. You can't injure your scene guy, twist his arm too far and rip out his socket, that's not good. And so they're doing so much, and it's just so incredible. I wish I liked it more, because the amount of expertise and athleticism that goes into being a wrestler is monumentally hard. And I have nothing but respect, because they're doing gymnastics live without a safety net and in character. Like, it's mind-boggling for sure. God.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more, man. Wow.
Nice. I think that's mostly, we could go through every scene. Lily, Pam and Kevin meeting, is absolutely amazing, and it reveals so much about Kevin, who he is as a person, because he's not just hitting on all these women, right? He's a really good guy. He's never even had sex before, and you wouldn't assume that by looking at him, but they reveal it in such a way that you believe that he really just is that sweet of a guy. And Pam kind of pulling it out of him. How much do you love Pam because of that? God.
Yes. Oh yeah. Like she knows what she wants. Yeah. And she goes after it, and she allows him to be himself so that she can see, okay. The scene where he tells her about his brother dying, and she stands up, walks. This is their first date. She stands up and walks around the table, sits down, and hugs him. Tell me, okay, there are only a few things that men need in this world. I could tell you on one hand the number of things, and I'm talking to you, Wes. I'm talking to every man listening to this. You're all the same. All you need, and one of the biggest things is a person, doesn't matter, man, woman, that would do that. That is not afraid to just hug you when you need it, to know when you need it, and to just do it, right? Not ask you if you need it, because you're going to say no. You're going to say, I'm good. I'm fine. But she knows. She's like, no one's ever hugged this guy because of that. And I'm going to do it because I see him. Such a wonderful moment, man. God,
it's so good.
Moment.
And it starts when she gets up and goes over there to hug him. It's kind of funny. Like I kind of laughed a little bit because it's like, it's your first date. You're being dramatic. And then the fact that she didn't let go, and they let that moment linger until it became serious, and it became very sweet. Y'all better end up together forever. I'm going to be really upset.
Yeah. And until she wouldn't let go until he let go. You could see all of a sudden he let his guard down, and he hugged her back right away kind of, but then he really hugged her and he leaned into it, and you could see him receive it finally. Like it was okay. Oh man. So good.
Good writing,
so good, dude.
Meets good directing, meets great acting. You can't lose. Can't lose. Nice. Final thoughts, man?
Yeah, I loved it. Never want to see it again. I really do hope that Zac Efron gets a nod. I didn't even think about Academy Awards, honestly. But now that you brought that up, I completely agree. And I hope that he gets it. I don't know. Maybe he gets, I don't know. Does he get a bad rap? I don't know. I think that he's done some really good films in the last few years, and knows how to pick them well, and is a smart actor, and really good one. Yeah. And hopefully this film will give him more to do, in that vein, in this vein. So.
Completely agree. Like the first time I saw him do something more serious, I was like, this guy's got it. It's not a good movie, but he was really good in it from what I remember. And it was me and Orson Welles. And this was ages ago. This is probably a good 15 years ago, give or take. And I was like, oh, okay, this guy's got something in the tank. I hope he gets more opportunities. And he has. The Greatest Beer Run in the World is fantastic. It's a terrible title. What a bad, god-awful title, but it's a really good movie, and he's doing some really nice acting in it. So I think, to your point, I don't know if he's got enough cred in the bank with Academy to get that nod. This at a minimum should get him that cred and make him be taken more seriously, because I think he's earned it before this, and now this is like his arrival. He's arrived and he's earned it, and same, man. I hope he gets it too. Nice. What are you going to recommend this week?
So I gave it a little bit of nod earlier. You're going to be really surprised. But I don't even care, because that's what a recommendation is for. Just to maybe sometimes to surprise you. I am going to recommend Wonka, and I'm going to tell you why.
Oh, yeah, I know. You're right.
I know. I told you. I'm going to tell you why. I've always felt strange about Willy Wonka. There's always something that has rubbed me wrong about that character. But not just that character, but about the way it's played. And everybody, loves, what's his name? The original.
Gene Wilder. Yeah.
Gene Wilder. Thank you. I love Gene Wilder. I think he was genius. I never got his Willy Wonka. I never got it. Always, every time I've seen it, and I've seen it like probably 20 times. Every time I've seen it, I'm like, this guy's an asshole. He's just a jerk. He's an old, bitter jerk, right? And I've never liked it. And I went into this, I saw it yesterday on my birthday because it was the only thing that we could go see with the kids. You know, there was nothing else really that I could see with them. And I wanted to go to a movie on my birthday. Yeah, right. And so we went in. And, it opens with a song and I'm like, oh, Jesus, God, here we go. Musical. Everybody knows who listens to this podcast. I hate musicals most of the time. But it won me over. It really did. I loved the version that Timothée Chalamet plays. He's caring, he's loving, he's other centered. And it's fun. It's geared towards children. It's early Willy Wonka. It's pre-Willy Wonka film, right? How he came into being. But I thought that the direction that Chalamet played was spot on. And I cried multiple times, especially at the end. And it was just really heartwarming. It might have been partially, it was my birthday and I was seeing it with my family and everything. And we were all in the theater watching it. And I remembered the original because I still love the original, but it made me, it filled some void that I had felt for all these years about the original or about any version of Willy Wonka that I'd seen before. So I'm recommending it because damn it, I loved it and it made me cry. And I thought it was fantastic and wonderfully done. So
nice.
Take it.
Well done. Okay. I'm going to recommend an unofficial recommendation that will also make you cry. And I will not put this in the show notes for reasons I'll let you know here in a second. And then an actual recommendation that I will put in the show notes because my first recommendation is if you watch The Iron Claw and like real life stories that are tragic, then you might enjoy, and I'm not going to that's why I'm not calling this a recommendation. I'm not saying anyone should ever watch this movie. You
Martyrs
of all people, I would rather watch Martyrs back to back than watch this movie again.
Oh my God.
Dead serious. This movie is called Dear Zachary. It's a documentary. It's Dear Zachary, a letter to a son about his father. And this movie is so brutal. I got halfway through it, same as Martyrs. Martyrs I got halfway through, stopped, and watched Aladdin, the cartoon, before I could finish watching it. And I got halfway through Dear Zachary, stopped, waited a month before I finished watching it. I waited a month after watching half of it, started watching the second half, and then it got worse. It was already bad enough that I stopped watching it for 30 days. For it to get worse after that is like, just to set your expectations, you have to really appreciate real life tragedy and then kick yourself for watching it. Again, Todd, you will not watch this movie. I will refuse to let you watch this movie. I will unfriend you if you watch this movie because you will hate me for letting you watch it. And so
this is more of like a warning.
Yeah, it's a warning. But if that's your bag and you want something that's an experience that if someone else has watched it, there will come a look in both of your eyes that you're like, yeah, I know. Like, it's just such a brutal film. So Dear Zachary, if that's your cup of tea. My actual recommendation is lifting straps called Versa Grips Pro. If you want to look like Zac Efron, yoked with a great back, I love the Versa Grips Pro. They're expensive.
Thank you for those, by the way. Great birthday gift.
They're amazing. Like I like them for back work, and so part of my problem is sometimes my grip fails, and I didn't think of it as my grip failing before my back. But it wasn't until I put on the Versa Grips where I was able to really see, oh crap, I had like 3 or 4 more reps in me before I could really start getting closer to failure and failing. And so I was just really, really floored with the difference those made. And look, if you're worried about your grip work, I realize I'm probably speaking to mostly guys here, and a really few women that like weightlifting. But if you really appreciate like grip work, go do your grip work elsewhere. Like go get it in through whatever farmer's walks and maybe deadlifting or something like that. But if you're trying to get like really good lat work and work your back, like having these straps, man, it's a different level of engagement that you're going to experience, I think, or at least that's what it did for me and from other people I've talked to. So yeah, Versicubus Pro, I'll put a link to those in the show notes.
Nice. Way better than that terrible film. Yes, thank you for those, man. Better. I love them. They're wonderful.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I'm glad you liked them because I was like, I think you'll like them, but just in case, I don't want you spending your money. That way you're not mad at me.
They're not cheap.
They're not cheap. They're like $80. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Well, stay tuned for next week. We're finally getting to one of our listener requests. This one is requested from YouTuber Arnold Todt fan. Sorry, buddy. But yeah, we're going to cover that. Fallen. Denzel Washington from like the mid to late 90s. I haven't seen it since the mid to late 90s. And so I'm really excited to check it out again and see what's going on there. Yeah, so stay tuned for Fallen. And if you're enjoying the show, don't forget, drop us a review, subscribe, leave us a note if there's something you want us to talk about. Yeah, maybe we'll do some more interviews and guests this coming year. It's a lot of work for us, but it's also really fun to have people in and bring in their perspectives and information. You know, it's really cool. And so I've been really enjoying having guests on. If the schedule stays clear after this month, then why not, man? It's really fun. Yeah. If you want to leave a note on this episode, you can do that at thepestlepodcast.com/the Iron Claw.
And today's quote of the day is from Ric Flair. In order to be the man, you have to beat the man.
Woo!
Impressive. I can't do that. Woo! I'm lower. Nicely done.
Yeah, man. I love it. Yeah. I love it. I like also that the exposition that we got from Kevin, because you have to bring non-wrestling fans along to understand why people like wrestling. And I love that comment as he's explaining it to Pam. What a great exposition device when he says, she's like, but it's not fake. So how can you really win? He's like, you're looking at it wrong. Like, getting to be the title belt winner is a promotion. It's like any job. And it results from you doing really well as a character, as a performer, as a good wrestler, as an engagement device for the community. Like, these are all things that go into whether or not you get promoted. And that's what feels good about it, is because I'm doing really good at my job. And it was just a really great light bulb to give to the audience members, because that's a really important aspect of the film, as well as understanding and appreciating wrestling. Like, just the writing in this movie is amazing. He's going to win probably an award for, best original screenplay, I'd imagine. Yeah. So yeah. That's all I got.
Nice. No, I love it. Cool. Well, thank you guys for listening. I really enjoyed talking about this movie. Again, probably won't watch it again for at least a hot minute, but I think we need films like this. We need stories to be told like this, so that you and I can sit here in a room and we can talk about how great the acting is, or how great the writing is, and we can use that as inspiration to do something ourselves. I think that's why stuff like this is super important, even if it's hard to watch. But make sure, please subscribe, review us wherever you can, share us with your friends, and like Wes said, if there's a film you'd like to hear us do, please make the suggestion. Who knows? Maybe we'll cover it. Until next time, I'm Todd.
I'm Wes.
Go watch some movies.